The Suzuki Vitara is a small SUV that, when it first went on sale, initially stood out because of its cheap pricing. But over the years, a few tweaks here and there has gradually pushed the price up. So today, it isn't quite the bargain that it once was. But on whatcar.com, right now, you can save more than £3,000 off the Vitara. And if you click on the link at the top of the screen there, you can go straight to that deal. So with that discount in mind, suddenly that gives the Vitara a big chance to once again really stand out in the small SUV class. But is there more to this car than big discounts? In this review, we're telling you the good bits, the bad bits, how it compares to its rivals. And if you do want to buy one, we're also going to tell you what options and trims you should be considering. But for all that, if you want to see lots more new car reviews, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. So this is the 4th generation Suzuki Vitara, which first went on sale in 2015 and then it had a facelift in 2019. It's also just had a few more updates. So it's mainly a shake-up of the engine lineup, and you also get a few more additional safety features that come as standard. In Suzuki's lineup, it sits above the really small Suzuki Ignis, and if you want to see our full review of that car, then click on the link at the top of the screen there. And in the small SUV class, it's a rival to cars like the Ford Puma, the Nissan Juke, the Renault Captur, and the Skoda Kamiq. But from a styling perspective, the Vitara does have a bit more of an off-road feel to it compared to those other cars in this class. And also it's that rare thing of being a small SUV that actually offers four-wheel drive. That durable off-road feel from the outside is also felt inside, because in here it does feel pretty robust, well put together and durable, but that's perhaps the kindest thing that you can say about this interior, because in many other respects this does feel a little off the pace with what else you get in the small SUV class. And by that, it's really about the material quality, where it feels like it lags behind. Because yes, you've got some soft touch materials on top of the dashboard here, but all of this feels like quite cheap plastics here and there. And actually even the door and the boot feel quite light and tinny when you close them. But as we said, there are some soft touch materials up here. There's also an analog clock at the top of the dashboard. And you have some gloss blacks and a bit of patterned trim on the dash here. Plus, if you go for SZ5, this range topping model that we're in, then you also get this suede material on the seats and on this part of the door, which is quite nice, but still. Most other cars in the small SUV class offer interiors that just feel a little more luxurious than what you get in the Vitara, which is quite basic by those standards. Plus, a lot of those rivals also have the option of adding a fully digital driver display, whereas in the Vitara, you've just got these 2 analog dials and a small screen in the middle of it, which is fine, but not exactly cutting edge. But the driving position itself is fine. You've got a lot of adjustment in the steering wheel and in the seat, although with the seat, you don't get any electric adjustment on any trim. So you've just got to use these levers in the old school way, and you also don't get any adjustable lumbar support either. But the point to make on the driving position in the Vitara is that you do actually have quite a lofty driving position compared to most other small SUVs. So if you take, for example, a Skoda Kamiq, that really doesn't feel that much different from a regular hatchback. Whereas in the Vitara, you do feel like you're sort of in an SUV because you're just that much higher off the ground. It's got really boxy dimensions and a lot of glass to look out of as well. And all the controls are within easy reach from this driving position as well. And it's great having these physical dials and buttons for the air conditioning, because some other rivals are moving away from that and offering more of the controls in the touchscreen, which is just a rubbish solution that's much more complicated and difficult to use, especially on the move. Now, this infotainment system, in the Vitara, if you go for entry-level SZ4 trim, you get a very, very basic media offering, which doesn't have a touchscreen, but still gets you DAB radio, a USB port, and Bluetooth. But if you go for SZT or SZ5, which is the model that we're in, then you get this touchscreen infotainment system. Now, it's okay, mainly because it offers wired Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, because if you have to use the Suzuki system itself, it's a little bit slow in its responses. And also these dials and buttons are quite small, so they're difficult to hit accurately on the move. And it's a bit fiddly having this slider for the volume control as well. It's just annoying. Although you do have steering wheel controls to make that a little bit less frustrating if you want to use it there. And in terms of space in the Vitara, well, there's quite a lot of it, but if you are especially tall, I'm just under 6 foot, so it's okay for me, but if you are much taller than I am, then this standard panoramic sunroof, which comes with SZ5 trim, does eat into quite a lot of headroom up here. But otherwise, you've got decent sized door bins and cup holders. You've also got these trays at the front of the dashboard, an armrest with a cubby underneath it as well. So in that respect, it's okay, but generally this does feel off the pace compared to most other cars in this class. Space in the back is okay by small SUV standards. The driver's seat's in my driving position and you can see that legroom is all right, but I haven't really got much room to stretch out in. And on most models, headroom is pretty good back here, but we're in an SZ5 trim Vitara and you can see it gets this sunroof as standard, and just like it did in the front, back here it really cuts into the available headroom. So if I sit up straight, my head's actually touching the roof lining here. So that's something to consider when you're choosing the trims of the Vitara. Overall, space is okay, but it's the Kamiq in this class that is especially generous when it comes to rear seat space. And it's also a shame that in the Vitara, you don't get sliding or reclining rear seats, which is something that you get on the smaller and the cheaper Suzuki Ignis. The Vitara's boot is pretty good by class standards. So not only is it just a generally big area to put stuff, but you also get a height adjustable boot floor as standard, which means in its highest setting, where it is now, it gives you this helpful storage area underneath. And it also means there's no loading lip at the very front of the boot, and it's generally not that high off the ground anyway, so it's easy when you're loading stuff in the back. But what you can also do is just remove the boot floor, put it in its lowest setting, and then just increase the space available back here. There's also 2 storage compartments either side, and another handy practical thing you can do is remove these bits to just mean you can use the whole of the width available at the front of the boot down there. Now, in terms of carry-on size suitcases, you can fit 5 of these into the back of the Vitara like this, which is similar to what you get in the VW T-Cross, but not quite a match for the 7 that you can get in the very, very practical Skoda Kamiq. And if you want even more room in the boot, what you can do is lower these rear seats very simply, and they split fold 60-40, so in 2 chunks at the back. And you can see with the rear seats down, they're not completely flat, but if you put this boot floor in its highest setting, then there's no awkward lip, and it makes it very easy to slide stuff in to the back, just like that. The main shake-up in the Vitara lineup recently has been with the engine. So now there is a choice of 1. It's a 1.4 litre turbocharged petrol engine with 127 brake horsepower, and now some mild hybrid technology. And it's actually quite a strong engine, so it's very easy to get up to motorway speeds. It offers quite flexible performance at those higher speeds as well, but it's quite noisy. So under hard acceleration, it's got a really quite coarse, tinny engine note. And then even when you're at a cruise and the engine noise fades into the background, you're left with quite a lot of road roar, wind noise, and it's just generally a lot noisier in here than many other rivals in this class. But when you slow things down and actually stop the car, that's when you notice the benefit of the stop-start system. Because yes, Suzuki will say that it benefits fuel economy, it gives you a boost in performance, but really the main benefit of this mild hybrid tech is giving a pretty smooth stop-start system. As for the ride, well, you do definitely notice when you go over bumps or broken bits of road, you get quite a big thud through the interior, again because of the general poor noise insulation inside the Vitara. But once it's gone over that bump, it settles down pretty quickly, and generally this is quite a comfortable car by the class standards. It's not up there with the Kamiq or with the VW T-Roc, but it's still pretty good. As for the handling, well, it's not going to trouble the Ford Puma, but it's pretty light, this steering, and very easy to drive around town. But it's just when you're going a little bit faster and going around corners, the steering doesn't quite weight up in the way that you might expect. But still, there are things to like about the Vitara on the road, even if it isn't particularly exceptional in any area. And if you do want to buy a Vitara, this is what you need to know about the trims and the options. There's 3 different trim levels to choose from, and we would go for entry-level SZ4. It's the cheapest trim and still gets adaptive cruise control, climate control, and automatic wipers. But that does lump you with a rather basic media system. So you might want to consider a little bit of luxury by going for SZT and getting this touchscreen infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. And you get a reversing camera as well. If you want front and rear parking sensors, you can't add them as an option. You have to go for range-topping SZ5 trim, but then you're stuck with this sunroof, which does cut into headroom in the back. But you don't have to go for a high trim level or dive into the options list to get a Vitara that comes with loads of safety equipment. As standard, you get blind spot monitoring, lane departure warning, lane keep assist, automatic emergency braking, and rear cross traffic alert. There is one white solid paint option that is no cost, so you're going to want to add some metallic paint, which costs £500. But there's quite a lot of two-tone colour options to choose from, which keeps the roof black, but the body a different colour, and that costs £800. You can also add quite a lot of colourful bits of trim to the outside and the inside of the car, which you might want to consider for the interior because it is a bit drab in there. But apart from that, there's not really many other options to consider, and there's only one engine. You do though have the choice between a manual or an automatic gearbox, and between the two, we'd probably go for the manual. The auto's fine, but the manual's got a nice light shift, so it's actually pretty good to use. Something else you might want to consider is the trump card that the Vitara can play on its rivals, and that is having the option of four-wheel drive. Now, you can't get that on entry-level SZ4 trim, but it is available on the two other trim levels, and it's called All Grip. If you go for it, then you get a few different drive modes, including one that forces the car into permanent four-wheel drive if you're stuck in mud or snow. And if you are desperate for a small SUV and you live up a muddy track, then that gives you a reason to consider the Vitara ahead of quite a few other rivals. But there are a few things to consider. It pushes the CO2 emissions up, it makes the fuel economy worse, and it's more expensive to buy than the two-wheel drive versions of the Vitara. So with the discounts on whatcar.com, the cheapest all-wheel drive version of this car is around £22,000. And for that money, you can get a very well-spec'd Skoda Kamiq or Ford Puma. And while they might not be four-wheel drive, they are much better cars overall. So, should you buy a Suzuki Vitara? Well, the interior does feel a bit old and the quality a bit off the pace compared to lots of other small SUV rivals now. And it doesn't really stand out on the road, although it does have quite a comfortable ride. But it's a rare example of a small SUV that offers four-wheel drive, although, as we've said, that does push the price up a little bit. So if you then look at the entry point of the Vitara range, then for around £19,000 you get a small SUV that's spacious, pretty practical, and has a relatively decent engine as well. If you want to go straight to those Vitara deals, then click on the link at the top of the screen there, or just look in our description, or you can just Google What Car Deals to find out more. And on our website, you can see not just the Vitara savings we have, but all the other money that we can save you off every other new car on sale. If you want more new car reviews, then make sure you're subscribed to our channel. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like, ask us any questions about the car in the comments below, and thank you for watching.